Welcome back to my kitchen. I am Mohammed the Egyptian cook, and for today's live, we are making two Egyptian favorites. We are making rice pudding, which is also known as ruz bil laban in Arabic, and we are also making milk pudding, which is known as mahalabiya in Arabic. These are two classics in Egyptian culture. They're not Egyptian in origin, but they are very popular in Egyptian culture. Just yesterday, I did put out a poll on both my Instagram and YouTube asking people which one essentially wins their heart. And rice pudding won by a landslide. On YouTube, I think the final results were essentially like around 75% in favor of rice pudding versus 25% in favor of milk pudding. And then on Instagram, I think the final results was like 80 or 82% in favor of rice pudding, and then the remaining 18 to 20% in favor of milk pudding. So for today's live, that is what we are making. Right here in front of me, I do have all my notes, everything that I need to do and or say. These are essentially all of my voiceover notes and instructions. And if you've watched my lives before, you know that's how I start each of my lives. I record all of my voiceover audio and go from there. If you're wondering why the font size is so large, it is because I am legally blind. It does not mean I am fully blind. There is a difference. I was diagnosed with Stargardt's disease as a teenager. And what that means is essentially my central vision. It's a form of macular degeneration that affects my central vision. So my vision is 20 over 200 in both eyes. To put that in perspective for you, if you have 20/20 vision, what you can see at 200 feet is essentially what I see at no more than 20 feet. So hence the reason why the font size is so large. This is Arial sized 28-point font, to put that in perspective. And I do have to hold things closely and do things differently. Just because of my disability does not mean that I am incapable. I just have to do things differently. And when it comes to reading, this is one of those things, because a lot of you do question why I look so closely or look the way that I do. That's the reason why. And if you're also wondering, why don't I just wear glasses? It's not that simple. There is, at this time, there really is no cure for what I have. So it's something that I've grown to live with and adapt to, and I don't let it hold me back. I just have to do things differently. So with that being said, when it comes to your comments, it is really difficult for me to be able to see, not very difficult, it's nearly impossible for me to see the comments as they are coming in. So if you're wondering why or upset at the fact that I do not interact with your comments, that is why. There's really nothing that I can do about it, even with me standing, this close to my phone. I'm currently live on TikTok, and to my left is YouTube. Even with me standing this close, I still cannot see the comments. So if you're upset at that and you want like a live creator who interacts with your comments, I'm sorry, I'm not that person. And politely, you can go elsewhere. This is just not the place for it, because there's really nothing I can do with my vision limitations. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with recording my voiceover audio. Let me turn on some extra lights as well. I also need to turn on this camera. This is my main camera that I will be recording with. I need to rotate this monitor this way. And then I need to turn on this light. And then we should be good to go. In Egyptian culture, rice pudding is ruz bil laban and milk pudding is mahalabiya. Which one wins your heart? Starting with the rice pudding, Add washed Egyptian ruz to a pot. Add a little extra water more than you normally would. What? No. Add a little extra water. Add a little extra water than you normally would. A little. What? This is. What did I write? This is not making any sense. Like my verbiage is not making sense. So I wrote, add a little extra water than you normally would. It's the than that's like throwing me off. Add a little extra water than you normally would, than you normally do, is what I wrote, but I keep on saying would. Than you normally do when cooking ruz. Okay, I have a solution. I'm gonna throw in the word more than you normally do. That should make it smoother. Add a little extra water more than you normally do when cooking ruz so that it comes out wet. Why did I emphasize wet so much? Like a 3-to-1 ratio. Add a little extra water more than you normally do when cooking ruz so that it comes out wet. That one's much better. Like a 3-to-1 ratio. That one's also much better with my tone as well. I think it will flow a lot better. Add a splash of rose water too. Let me get rid of that one. The two just sounded way offset. Add a splash of water to this too. That one's even worse. I just improvised that one. It's like 10 times worse. Also add a splash of rose water. Much better. Once this reaches a boil, turn the heat down to low. Put the lid on. Once the cook time is up, use a wooden spoon to whip the ruz around to mash it up. The ruz should have completely softened and become mushy. You want this to happen. Now add milk, cornstarch, sugar, vanillin, and sea salt. Mix it really well. Be careful not to have the temperature too high because it can cause the milk to... I was about to say freeze, not rise. It can cause the milk to rise and overflow, not freeze. All right, let's try that one again. Be careful not to have the temperature too high because it can cause the milk to rise and overflow. Once it reaches a light boil, turn off the heat. Immediately transfer the ruz bil leben to individual serving dishes, kind of like this. Garnish it with ground cinnamon, shredded coconut, and golden raisins. Let this cool down before you serve it for a thicker, creamier texture. Combine milk, cornstarch, sugar, vanillin, and a pinch of sea salt. Bring it to a light boil over medium heat while you frequently whisking it. No, why? Nope. Let's try this again. Bring it to a boil over medium heat while you frequently whisk it, ensuring all the ingredients have dissolved well. Continue whisking it for about 8 to 10 minutes until the mixture thickens into a into a smooth, not into a nice. I didn't even write the word nice. I'm like making up words here as I'm trying to read this. All right, let's try this again for like the 50th time. Continue whisking it for about 8 to 10 minutes until the mixture thickens into a smooth, pudding-like consistency. Transfer the milk pudding to individual serving dishes. Plain, a pinch of ground cinnamon, or pistachios are common options for milk pudding. Like the rice pudding, let the milk pudding cool down before you serve it so that it produces. No, so it. Oh my goodness, I need to stop making up words as I'm trying to read this nonsense. All right, like the rice pudding. All right, where am I? Let the milk pudding cool down before you serve it as. No, not as, it's so. Let the milk pudding cool down before you serve it so that it reaches a thick. Let the milk pudding cool down before you serve it so that it reaches a thicker and creamier texture. It only took 42 tries. Egyptian style, رز باللبن ومهلبية. All right, that is all of my voiceover audio. All that's left for me to record is anything that's highlighted in my intro and outro. The highlighted portions are essentially I have to reposition my camera up on me as I am doing whatever step, whether it's mixing or whatever the step is in that process, in that point of the recipe video. So let me go ahead and tilt this way. Let me turn the air back on. I need to turn my camera this way as well and get that into position. And then I'm going to move this stuff out of the way, bring you guys over. Let's go ahead and actually move it over here because I need to start with the countertop stove and the rice. So let me get all this stuff out of the way. And then we can essentially start cooking. Well, I do need to rinse the rice first. So let me grab a bowl for that. Oops. All right, let's go ahead and get this rice in here and rinsed up, and then I'll bring you guys over. And then we can jump right into the cooking. Thankfully for this recipe video, there's not, in comparison to like my others, there's not a lot of like the prepping involved, like, you know, with slicing vegetables and all that type of stuff. So we can actually just jump right into this. This is Egyptian style ruz, which is essentially a medium grain rice that's going into the bowl. Take this back up so that it is sealed. All right, water is beside us over here. Quick rinse. Let's drain the water. And then we can set up the countertop stove, and I'll bring you guys over onto the counter so that way you can have a better point of view of the nonsense that is happening in the kitchen. Actually, that's where you guys are going to be, so let's move it out of the way. Let's go on a quick field trip to over here. Let's tilt you guys down a little bit. Bring the countertop stove over. Put it here. Need to bring the pan over too that we'll be using. All right. I do have one recording line that I need to do, but before I do that, let me make sure, now that I got this set up, that you guys have a good point of view. So actually, let me raise you up a little bit, tilt you a little bit like that. Sorry, YouTube, for that, for blocking your view for a moment there. All right, I think everybody can see everything now. This should be okay. All right, I think we're good to go. Move this out of the way. Oops. All right. This should be an easy line. Need to tilt this down just a little teeny tiny bit. And when I'm recording, if I'm not recording a line, like as I'm cooking, but I'm still recording on my main camera, I do go radio silent because I record my voiceover separately for like 90%. So in case you guys are wondering why sometimes I go radio silent as I'm cooking or whatever, it's most likely because I am recording on my main camera, and I don't want there to be a clash of my voice in the present with my voice from the voiceover recording. So let's go ahead and record this first line, and then we can adjust the camera angles and go from there. Starting with the rice pudding. Let's review it, make sure everything's okay, and then we can. Starting with the rice pudding. Fantastic. Now I need to go around and adjust the camera down to focus on this for the next few shots. So just give me one moment as I make that adjustment. Let's see, how can I do this? Let me adjust it a little bit more, and then we'll go from there. And I think it looks like you guys can also see my monitor as well in your frame, so you guys can actually see a glimpse essentially of what I am recording from like my main camera's point of view. All right, next shot. Okay. Okay. Now I need to adjust the camera again so that way it focuses in the pot. So just give me one moment as I make these adjustments. That can be right there. I need to raise it up higher. Give me one moment. Let's see how we look. All right, let's adjust the zoom. I need the water and the rose water. And then once I add all that in, I need to adjust my camera angle up because I do have a recording line. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's do this. Turn the flame back on. If I go too low, the flame goes out on this. All right, that should be good. All right, let's do this. flame go out again? No, it did not. Rice is in. Now let's go in with some water. So the water you want to go a little bit extra because you want the rice or the ruz to come out wetter than normal, and you want it to easily mush up because we will be whipping it around once it is done cooking. That was rose water. So you could use rose water or orange blossom water when it comes to making rice pudding. A lot of people, it's like 50, let's just say 50-50 split, for example, where people will get upset if they see you using rose water or orange blossom water for rice pudding. But it's all subjective, really. I'm not claiming that this is the original recipe or any of that type of stuff. I'm just essentially sharing these two puddings, starting with the rice pudding and stating that, you know, it's popular in Egyptian culture. So yeah, so when the final cut of the recipe video post, I'm anticipating that people will be upset with me using rose water, but it is what it is. And with that being said, that brings us to my next line. So I do need to adjust the camera. Actually, let me pull this back first a little bit so it's a little bit closer to me. Okay. Because this next shot, I do have a recording line, so I need to not only show myself, but the pot of rice needs to be visible as well. All right, let's see how we look. All right. Instead of adjusting the camera to center this, I'll just slide that over. You guys can still see everything, it looks like, so we should be good to go. Oh, we don't use rose water. Okay, khalas, go sit down somewhere. So I wrote two different responses. The first one, go sit down somewhere, and the second one, go be a ladybug and fly away. Let me try that one, see how that feels. Because sometimes when I write, in comparison to like how I actually, when it comes to like me, so like when I'm sitting at my computer and I write these things, I will say it out loud. And when I'm sitting at my computer, it feels different than being right here where I'm actually recording. So a lot of times, there will be times where it makes sense when I say it, like, you know, when I'm sitting at my computer, but then when I say it here, it just doesn't feel right. So hence, you know, as you saw, if you were watching me as I was recording my voice over audio, I did a lot of retakes because it just didn't feel right with what I was saying. So let's try this again. Let's adjust the temperature a little bit. Oh, but we don't use rose water. Okay, khalas, go be a ladybug and fly away. My voice kept like cracked a few times with that one. Oh my goodness, that's so bad. Go be a ladybug and fly away. Let's see how it looked. Let's review it. And then if that one's a good, then I'll trust my gut instinct with how it looks, and then we'll reposition the camera for the next shot. We're gonna try it one more time. I kind of like the ladybug one better than go sit down somewhere. Oh, but we don't use rose water. Okay, khalas. Be a ladybug and fly away. All right, let's review that one for good measure, and then we'll transition to the next shot. All right, everything's in focus. All right, that one's a winner. Let me adjust the camera back closer onto the pot for these next few shots. All right, let's tilt this down. Let's zoom in a bit. All right, let's see how we look. I definitely need to tilt that a lot more. Still a little bit more. All right, where am I? Once it reaches a boil, so I need to do like a little point because I already recorded my voiceover line for that one. I need to tilt the camera way down for this next shot, where I say turn the heat to low. So I just need to visualize that for the viewer. All right, let's see how we look. Should be okay. All right, I need to grab the lid for this next one. All right, I need to adjust the camera back up onto me because I do have another recording line for this next part where it will be showing the pot as well. So let's go ahead and get in position. Let's check it out. Tilt it up just a little bit, just a little teeny tiny bit, like that much. All right, that should be okay. And let this cook for at least 12 minutes. Let me try that one again. And let this cook for at least 12 minutes. That one should be okay. Let's review it. And then we can go from there. I think we're okay. Let's see what time it is right now. 4:36. So that would be 12 minutes would be at 4:48. We could probably even do it a little bit sooner because it was going for cooking for a few extra minutes while I was going back and forth adjusting the camera. Because essentially now we just have to wait for this to cook. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get ready for my next shot. We're going to move this over to my main stove. So that way it's not just cooking on the countertop stove this entire time. So let me get this situated. And then we can go from there. Temperature is a little bit too high. That should be okay. Let's go ahead and move this over to my main stove. There we go. All right. So the rice or the ruz is going on my main stove back here, as you can see. And here's all the other ingredients that we will need. So in about 10 minutes, we're just gonna let this cook for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to whip it up. When I say whip it up, we're essentially going to use like a wooden spoon just to like literally whip it around so that way it mashes up. It will still have some texture to it. You do definitely want it to have that some texture to it for this next part. Give me one moment. Let me turn off this camera while we're waiting so it doesn't overheat. So we're going to whip it up and then we're going to add the milk and all the other ingredients to it and then let it cook. And then after that, we're going to start working on the milk pudding or the mahalabiya in Arabic. This is the ruz bil laban in Arabic, which is rice pudding. But the actual the literal translation, ruz, which is rice, bil means with, and then laban means milk. So rice with milk is the literal translation, but it is in reference to the dessert rice pudding. So that is essentially where we are right now with this. What else? So essentially now we just wait. My plan with this live today is to knock out the rice pudding first, and then once the rice pudding is complete, then we'll move on to the milk pudding. The reason for that is because when it comes time to serving, you do want to allow these puddings in general time to cool down. So that should give it enough time for it to cool down. The milk pudding only takes like roughly, like in a perfect world, like about 15-ish minutes for it to complete. But considering it's me, it's going to end up taking like 5 hours to do. No, I'm just kidding. Even for this, I started this live at 4 o'clock. It's now 4:40. I think we're moving along pretty well in comparison to my other lives where I usually take like an average of 4 hours to do whatever it is that I'm doing. But you know, considering it's me, I'll figure out a way to make this live last 4 hours where I'm still making the rice pudding. And I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. It will be done when it's done. I don't purposely try to make my lives long or anything like that. It's just the nature of, if this is how long it takes me to do, this is how long it takes me to do, because I'm not just necessarily cooking, I am also doing the camera work with my main camera and working on producing my main recipe video that I end up posting to all of my social media platforms and to my website. Uh, so it's not just simply cooking with my lives. It's essentially like a behind the scenes of everything, almost everything that I do when it comes to working on these recipe videos. One thing that I really found interesting was through the poll that I put up yesterday on Instagram and YouTube. It's no longer available for you to vote on Instagram because the 24 hours expired. But on YouTube, it's under the posts tab on my YouTube channel. I'm not sure if you can still vote on it or not. I don't know if there's like that 24-hour cap for you to be able to vote on it, but you can still see the regardless if you can still vote on it or not, you can still see the poll itself and the results. So I found it interesting. I essentially asked on both Instagram and YouTube between rice pudding and milk pudding, which one essentially wins your heart, like which one is your favorite. And it was nearly a landslide in favor of rice pudding, which was really, really shocking to me. On YouTube, I think the final results was like 75% in favor of rice pudding versus 25% in favor of milk pudding. And then on Instagram, I think it was like 80 or 82% in favor of rice pudding, and the remaining 18 to 20% in favor of milk pudding. The reason why I find that shocking, in my opinion, I think rice pudding in general is very underrated. And then in terms of milk pudding, when I was in Egypt last year, so it's been a while since I've been in Egypt. Before last year, it was roughly 18 years. Yeah, 18 years. Before last year, my last time in Egypt was back in 2006. So it's been a long time since I went back home and seen my family and all of that. But that was last year was my first time being exposed to Mahal, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible. I was at a restaurant. What restaurant was it? Oh my goodness. I can't remember the name of the restaurant. I do remember though, on all of the plates, this restaurant was huge. On all of the plates, it had a picture like a cartoonish image, like animated image of the lady who owns it. She wears like a brownish beige galabeya, and all of her like advertising and marketing. I forget what the restaurant is called. I'm sure one of you, any of my followers who are Egyptian or live in Egypt, you can immediately tell me the name of that restaurant. But that was my first time having mahalabiya, and it was absolutely incredible, and I loved it. So that brings us to today with me sharing it. I figured I'd do these two classics in Egyptian culture, both rice pudding and milk pudding, and then let people decide which they like better. All right, so we need more of this water to disappear. We're at that 10-minute mark. So what I'm going to do is just let this cook with the lid off for a little bit, so that way it does not trap that moisture. It lets a lot of it release. And then we can go from there. Water should be like roughly like a 3-to-1. So normally when you cook rice, they recommend, I think, like a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every 1 cup of rice, you add 2 cups of water. But when making roz bil laban, when making rice pudding, you want the rice to be mushier, so you increase the water level to about 3-to-1 ratio. I didn't measure, so I may have overdone it, which, you know, is what it is. It will be okay. It'll all work out in the end. This will just make the rice a lot more mushier, which is okay because it will make it easier when it comes time to whip it around with a wooden spoon, we will be good to go. So let's see. This is hot. Trying to gauge its mashability right now. So it should just mash up. So we still need a little bit more time. Bismillah. It's cooked, but we need it to be a lot more mushier. When you just go in with a spoon to whip it around, it should essentially, you don't want it to be like a smooth consistency, like say for example, when you're making mashed potatoes and you want it to have that nice smooth consistency. When making rice pudding, you want it to have that texture. So you want it to be cooked soft enough to where when you whip it, it will essentially break apart, to not fully break apart, but some of it will mash up. Some of it will still have that texture. Essentially like clumps, but in a good way, not in a bad way, like, you know, with the negative rep that reputation that the term clumps will have when it comes to cooking. I don't know if you're able to tell, but just from having the lid off for a couple of minutes here, as I have been running my mouth, a lot of that water has disappeared. So even in general, when you are cooking rice, so you're not making rice pudding and you're just cooking rice and you put in too much water, simple trick, just remove the lid and let it cook for a couple of minutes with the lid off. Make sure you pay attention to it though, because then it could have the opposite effect where you leave the lid off for too long and then it goes from having too much water to not enough water. So you just need to find that that good balance when it comes to doing this. I'll keep this right here. That was kind of stupid. Just I touched it just to see if it was hot or not. Whatever, it is what it is. So last week when I made so last week on my live I made sagut, which is Egyptian style sausage, and that full recipe video is posting to all of my social media platforms tomorrow. It's been for the past week. It's been a members only video for any of my YouTube members, but tomorrow is the day that it releases for everybody to be able to watch. But anyways, when I made that recipe video, I made it with ruzbit sharia, which is vermicelli rice. And later on at night, it was about like 2 o'clock in the morning after I had finished editing and all my work. I go to put away the food. So I had the sagut, it was in this pot. I go to put it in the fridge, okay? And then I had the ruzbit sharia in another pot, but I accidentally left the stove on and I didn't even realize it. It was on for like an additional 6, 7, almost 8 hours after I finished cooking. And it was on low heat and it completely burned all of the rice. But it didn't like produce like that burning scent. So when I went to go put it away, I wasn't, just grabbing it, just normal, just not thinking anything about it. But the, the pot was scorching hot. And I didn't realize it. Thankfully, I didn't like throw it or anything, but yeah. So that was last week Sunday. It happened in this pot actually, right here. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna put the lid back on. We're gonna let this cook for about 2 more minutes, like 2, 3 more minutes, and then we will whip it around and we can go from there. So this rose, if you're just making it like on its own, it takes only 12 minutes to cook. But considering that we want it to be mushy, we put in that extra water. So it does take a little bit longer to cook, hence the reason why in my voiceover and instructions for making this, you want it to cook for at least 12 minutes. You just want to give it more time to soften more than usual. And considering that you put in more water, you need more time to allow that water to evaporate. Not only the rose to absorb that water, but for any of the leftover water to evaporate. So actually, since we only got a couple minutes left, let me bring it back. Let me get set back up over here onto my what's it called, countertop stove. So let's actually take a quick little field trip, then I'll rotate you guys back around like so. All right, let's turn that back on. All right, there you go, YouTube. That should be okay for you guys to see. And then TikTok, it looks like you guys can see it too. Actually, let me move you back a little bit. There we go. All right, that should be okay. Let's turn this camera back on as well. And for those of you who can see this monitor, you can get an early sneak peek of what the final cut will look like. Milk, cornstarch. I'm just lining everything up in the order that I set it. So milk, cornstarch, then the sugar, vanillin, and then the sea salt. Give it another minute without the lid on. And then we will move on with mashing this up. Don't need the water anymore. I actually need to adjust my camera better on this because the rose is definitely out of focus. let's do this. Put the lid to the side here. Now I need to get a close-up shot. So that's essentially how it should look. It should mash up and it should still have some of that texture. That's what you want to happen. Let's come in with the milk. Just a little bit more. It's about 3 cups, I think. I need to grab a spoon. And some of these little bowls. First is the cornstarch. Let me put the lid on that. That was the cornstarch. Up next is the sugar. Up next is the vanillin powder. Let's go ahead and get this next shot in. All right, let's throw this out. And the final thing is just a little bit of sea salt. recording lines. No. Okay, we did all this. Mix it well. Be careful. Blah blah blah. Once it reaches. All right. So I need to mix it, and then I need to do it long enough for my 2 lines, because I say be careful not to have the temperature be too high, because it can cause the milk to overflow. Oh, I need to do this little puzzle stupid verification thing on TikTok. All right. Sorry about that, TikTok. All right, let's go ahead and get this next shot in. All right, you want to make sure that you mix everything really well, especially because you put the cornstarch and sugar in there. One thing that you can do, like when it comes to the cornstarch, if you want to, you can mix the cornstarch. You can take like a small cup of milk, for example, before you add all the milk. You can take like a small cup of milk and set it to the side. You can mix the cornstarch in that first, and then incorporate that, or you could just do it all together, kind of like with what I just did here, where everything just went in this pot. Just turning the temperature down just a little teeny tiny bit. You don't want the temperature to be too high once you incorporate the milk. The reason for that is because the milk can easily rise and overflow once it reaches like that boil. You want it just to reach a light boil. Once that happens, then you turn off the heat and you immediately transfer the rice pudding or the rose bileben to the serving dishes. And one thing about when it comes to rice pudding, you want to, when you transfer it to the serving dishes, you traditionally speaking, we usually do it in like individual serving dishes. It's not often at all where you'll find somebody, you know, they put it in a big tray, for example, or whatever the case is. So something like this, for example, something along the lines of this, with any type of design, but where you can portion it all into, each person gets their own little cup, and then you can top it with whatever toppings, but we're about to get to that part in a moment here. Let's see what my lines are here. Be careful not to, okay, I did that. Once it reaches a light boil, turn off the heat. All right. So as you can see here, from mixing it up, when we mixed up the rose, like before we incorporated the milk and all these other ingredients, we whipped it up just to mash it up, where now you can see once we added the milk and everything else, you can see that texture. That's essentially how you want it to look. It should have that imperfect look, I guess you can call it. So in about a minute here, I'm going to take my next shot. That's where I already recorded the voiceover where I say, once it reaches a light boil. As you can see, the bubbles are starting to up here. Like when I stop mixing it, you can see the bubbles keep on randomly happening. You want that to happen. Once that happens, essentially it's when you can turn off the heat. I need to adjust the camera way down like before. So just give me one moment as I do so. Please and thank you. All right, that's simple. So the roast beef lemon is all set in terms of the cooking side of things. Now we can transfer it to the serving dishes. So just let me temporarily move it out of the way so I can get the countertop stove out of the way as well. Bad idea. Let's bring it over here where I usually keep it for now. Let's clean up my spot. Here's a serving dish that I will be using. Let's see, how did I say this? Immediately. All right, let's adjust the camera. Oh, I need to raise it up a little bit. See how we look. All right, that should be okay. For the positioning, can you guys see this? I'm using my hand as a reference because I won't be able to see that cup on the screen. All right, so now I just need to slide it in position. I'll use this for reference and this. All right, and Move this stuff out of the way. And then I'm going to bring the roasted lemon over. That can go there. When it comes to transferring the roasted lemon to the serving dishes, you want to do it while it's still hot, because the more it cools, the more it will thicken up, and it will essentially like take its shape. So if you scoop this when it's cooled down, it will essentially look like, think of it like when you cut into Jello, for example. It will cut into those shapes, and you don't want that to happen. More so for like aesthetic purposes when it comes to serving it in these dishes. All right, let's do this. While I'm recording these shots, I will go radio silent. Should be good for the level. Just a little teeny tiny bit more. It's this side that on camera it looks like a crater, like towards the edge. So here's what I'll do. Just put like a little teeny tiny bit. And I'll have better luck pushing it with the spoon. Much better. All right, where's the cinnamon? So the toppings are interchangeable. It's not a one size fits all. You can serve it like this, where it's plain, for example. You can add ground cinnamon, pistachios, golden raisins. What else? Essentially, like the toppings are versatile. It's all to your taste. All right, that was the ground cinnamon. Up next, we got some shredded coconut. And the final topping. This is my all-time favorite when it comes to rose باللبن, golden raisins. It's like my absolute favorite topping. Don't want every single one to be in the center like that. So let me push it to the side and then we should be okay. All right, let me go wash my hands. All right, let's see. Okay. I need to avoid my spot. I do have a recording line as well. Let me temporarily put this to the side. I'll record my line. Actually, I'm gonna clean my spot first. Towel. Put that right there. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Here you go, YouTube. Here is the first finished cup of rose باللبن. Here you go, TikTok. The first finished cup of rose باللبن. It is still hot, so you want to wait a little bit before you serve it. So I'm going to record my next line that I need. So I actually need to adjust the camera up for this. Zoom out. This can go down like so. I need to raise it up a little bit. Give me one moment. Toppings are Toppings are interchangeable based on your preference. I forgot the R. Based on your preference. That's what I was about. I started saying. Oh my goodness. This is embarrassing. Toppings are interchangeable based on your preference. All right, let's try this again. Serious faces, people. No laughing aloud. Toppings are interchangeable based on your preference. Oh my goodness. All right, let's review that shot. Toppings are interchangeable based on your preference. All right, we're good to go. And then I need to do a little spin shot as well. So let's bring this thing over. Let's line this up, put this here. Then I need to adjust my camera down onto it as well. Let's see how that looks. A little bit lower. That was one shot. Oops. Do need to take another one with it just simply being on the counter, but a little bit zoomed out. Then when it comes to me, when it comes time for me to edit this video, I'll do like a little zoom action thing. Let's see. Battery exhausted? What? Are you kidding me? Usually my camera tells me internal temperature too low or too high, but that's the first time I've ever seen it say battery exhausted. I hope that doesn't mean that the battery's dead. If that means like the battery's actually like dead, because I have it plugged in to the charger as well, so it should be charging the battery like as we speak. But if battery exhausted means that like the battery is like dead, like no longer with us, then that's an issue because I don't have spare batteries. So I guess we'll find out in like a minute or two. I wasn't expecting this to happen. Yeah. So we'll give it like a minute or so. Hopefully it just, it's just another way of the camera saying that, that it's too hot. I hope that it's not the battery is actually dead, because then I'll be stuck. Essentially, I won't be able to complete this video. I'll essentially have to pick it up another day if that's the case. While we're waiting on that, can actually bowl up the other ones. So like I said earlier, you want to scoop this while it's still hot, because the more it cools, the more it will take its form. So when you make roast bileben, in this case rice pudding, you want to serve it in a dish similar to this, like an individual serving dish of some sort. Let me grab a spoon to better level this out. So scoop it or portion it into its serving dish while it's still hot. And plus this will help it cool down much quicker as well too. You can also, you can let these cool like one of two ways. You can either let it sit room temperature and let it cool down that way, or you could put it in the refrigerator once you have it all portioned. When it comes to the toppings, especially like if you're serving this like later tonight, for example, for a function, based on your time and everything, I would wait to put the toppings until when it comes time, like right before you serve it. You know, if you have people coming over, you could do it like one of two ways. You could do it like right before you serve it, or you could do it like if some people have different preferences and you're offering like different toppings, you can do like a little, like a rice pudding bar, whatever you want to call it, with all the toppings like in their own separate bowls, kind of like a self, you know, like a build a rice pudding, kind of like Build a Bear, but build a rice pudding where you can top it yourself based on whatever you like. Just an idea. All right, that's two. And then for what's left, I'm just going to put it in this bowl. Where's the wooden spoon? All right, for what's left, we're just gonna go into this bowl. And then hopefully after this, my main camera is okay and it will turn back on and we can move forward with working on the recipe video. Yalla bismillah. It's not overly sweet, which is good. All right, let's try my camera again. Please turn on. Please turn on. Battery exhausted. said battery exhausted again, and it didn't even give me the picture or anything. All right. This is very unexpected. It kind of puts me like at a standstill for this actual recipe video, because that's the whole purpose of me going live and working on this. Because we still have to do the mahalabeya as well, and we were at the tail end of the roast bil laban. And of course, you know, the live where I'm actually moving things along, it's not taking that long in comparison to my other ones. That's where this decides to like if it's plugged in, so my camera's plugged in to an actual like power cable, and that's what charges the battery. I don't understand. I don't know. I don't understand cameras well enough to know why, how or why this happened. Usually it just tells me like internal temperature too high, so it shuts down for it to like cool down for a couple minutes. But this time it's actually saying battery exhausted. I don't know. Let me. This just completely threw a wrench in my plans, but it is what it is. Let me clean up here. Let's go on a quick little field trip. I'll clean up the little mess that I have for now, just to allow the camera more time to just like make up its mind. Oops. Because I honestly don't know if this is, if it's essentially the battery is just no good anymore, or what the exact deal is with this. So let's clean up in hopes during this time that the camera will turn back on, and then we can go from there. If not, then we will then essentially, if worst case scenario, if that is truly it for my camera, then after this I will have to conclude the live, because even though I was planning to make the mahalabeya as well, because it's just me here, so in terms of whatever I cook, I eat. I don't want to be making all of these desserts and then constantly eating all of this sugar. So worst case scenario, if the camera still decides to no longer work, then we're going to conclude the live. I'm going to figure out what the issue is and order a new battery, and then we can pick the ball up again with another live like later this week. I don't know exactly what day it will be, but I'll figure it out as we go along. So I apologize to everybody who for everybody watching this. I really am sorry about that. If this was something like if we were making like whatever dinner, I would just continue with it. But considering that it's desserts and I try to limit my sugars of what I consume, I don't want to have a surplus of sweets at home. We'll figure it out. At the end of the day, we will figure it out. Oops. From the very beginning, when I first got that camera, my biggest, not my biggest, but I guess like a better term would be my only complaint for it was the battery, because even when the camera was brand new, the average life of the battery on a full charge would be about an hour. And for a camera like that, and I'm not a camera expert in any capacity, but for a camera like that, an average 1 hour lifespan for a battery, in my opinion, I think is way too low. I use the Sony A6400 series camera. So it just doesn't make sense to me that you guys can produce such an amazing camera, but when it comes to the battery life is absolutely terrible. All right, this will be the last thing that we clean. Not too many dirty dishes today, because today's live was fairly simple. So let's get this cleaned up, this last pot, and then we will check out the camera and then go from there. If the camera is dead, then that will conclude the live. I'll eat the one that I do, the roast beef lemon that I do have prepared. But then I'm gonna have to hop on my computer and figure out a solution for the camera. And if you guys know of any good solutions for my battery issue, please let me know. Your best bet, if you're on WhatsApp, send me a message through WhatsApp, a DM on WhatsApp. That, in terms of like my DMs, I check the most frequently. That and Instagram, actually. TikTok is, seldom. I still do check them, but I just don't like the messaging system on TikTok, so I do not use it as much. So if you know of any good solutions for the battery issue for the Sony A6400, please let me know. So that way in the future, for my future lives and my future work, we do not run into this issue. Got a little bit more to clean. That's just the milk and the cornstarch. The milk and starch, once they mix, they begin to form that like really creamy pudding. And as you're mixing it in the pot, like the waves that go up higher, that thin layer will essentially cake on like so. Possibly one more go, and we should be good to go. I said go way too many times in that sentence. I think that's it, I hope. All right, let me dry my hands and then let's check out the camera situation and then go from there. Quick field trip. All right, let's try this again. Battery exhausted. What if, let's see, take this off. On a bright note, at least we did finish this, the Rosebud 11, the first bowl during the live. So this black wire is what connects it to this monitor. The red one, that's what charges it. I think this is the battery right here. I'm just curious to see if it will turn on, like with it just being directly plugged in, but you know, I guess not. And this is the original battery that it came with. Let's put it back in. See on here, we're back. We're back. All right. I don't know what just happened there. I don't know why it kept on saying battery exhausted and it just wouldn't turn on. All right, let me put it back on. The, what's it called? Tripod. Let me move these out of the way. Yeah, we're back. Yeah, see. Oh my goodness, battery exhausted. No! I was so happy there for a moment, like, because we could continue with this and oh boy, oh boy. All right. Let me, here, I'll just use this spoon right here. Let me bring you guys over here. Here, let's lower this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, due to the technical difficulties, I'd like to apologize in advance for that happening. It's not something that I was anticipating for it to happen. For my camera to just completely die like that. So from the bottom of my heart, I truly do apologize. I really was looking forward to today's live, making both Rosebud 11 and Mahal Beya and working on the recipe video for as part of this live as I go live every single Sunday, doing what I do. Even, you know, me putting up the poll just to see what you guys were, just to gauge like my audience to see, do you like rice pudding or milk pudding? and it was essentially a landslide in favor of rice pudding. So I guess this was a sign, in a way, like a blessing in disguise, I guess you could call it, where we still were able to see the rice pudding. But essentially, that's where my camera decided to stop. So we are going to have to put a pause on that for in terms of this entire recipe video. So once I get my camera situated, my main camera situated, then I will go live again in the coming this coming week. I don't know exactly what day just yet, because I do need to order a new battery and go from there. And based on what time it gets delivered, or if I go in person, and we can go from there. So I apologize from by my heart, and from these unforeseen circumstances, but on a bright note, we were able to complete this this dish of ruz bil leben. So I used 1 cup of ruz, which gave me 3 of these, plus I put what was left over in this bowl. So it gave me about 4 of these. I think these are like 7 or 8 ounce cups. I'll have it linked in my Amazon store by tomorrow, where you can order these actually. I have these other ones. These are the ones that I grew up with actually. These right here. So you want to use, like, you know, a cup of this style when it comes to serving rice pudding, or as we call it, rose bil leben in Arabic. Toppings are interchangeable. I used ground cinnamon, coconut, shredded coconut, and my all-time favorite topping for rose bil leben, the golden raisins. And once you scoop it while it's hot into these individual serving dishes, and then let it cool down before you serve it. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Rose bil leben, rice pudding. Yalla bismillah. Mm-hmm. Rice pudding in general, even though it was a landslide in the poll that I put up on Instagram and TikTok, it was essentially minimum 75% overall are in favor of rice pudding. I still think in general that rice pudding, like generally speaking, in terms of desserts, I think it's very underrated. It's not overly sweet. And a lot of people hate on the fact that I like to add a splash of rose water to my rice pudding. It's subjective, honestly. It gives it nice added flavor and the aroma as well too, on top of the vanilla powder. I'm telling you, it is 10 out of 10 every time. And even with, I did also add sugar to it. For this 1 cup of rice, I added 4 tablespoons of sugar, which is equivalent to 1/4 cup of sugar. So it's not overly sweet. It's just the right balance of everything. promise you, this is absolutely incredible. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, I apologize for the technical issues with today's live. I will be picking the ball back up on this exact recipe video. I'll essentially start from scratch all over again, from start to finish. It will be sometime this week. I don't know exactly what day just yet. I'll have a better answer later tonight or by tomorrow once I figure out my camera situation and get that fixed and situated. In the meantime, thank you for everyone who joined in today's live. I appreciate each and every single one of you. If you're not already following me on my TikTok, hit that follow button. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also click that join button on my YouTube to be a part of my channel membership. It is one of the best ways to support what I do here in my kitchen. Thank you, everybody. I am Mohammed the Egyptian Cook, and have a wonderful night.